All right, for this explainer, we're diving into a really fascinating concept. A world rebuilt from the ashes of our own digital age. A future born after the complete end of silicon.
So, just picture this for a second. What if every single computer on Earth was just erased in a flash? I'm talking everything that runs on a microchip, your phone, the internet, the entire global financial system, poof, gone in an instant. Not blown up, just wiped clean. What do you even do next? Okay, so the story here really unfolds in 3 acts. First, you've got the microprocessor age, which is, well, it's pretty much our world right now. Then comes this cataclysmic event they call the Great Desynchronization that just erases everything. And finally, out of those ruins, something totally new rises, the electromechanical era.
So let's start with Act 1, the end of an age. We need to understand the unraveling, how a world so completely built on silicon was brought to its knees.
You see, our entire digital world, the whole thing, was built on this one, single, kind of hidden, fatal assumption that the electricity powering it all would always be perfectly stable. You know that constant, reliable hum from the grid? We just took it for granted. But what if? What if that very hum could be weaponized?
And yet, that's exactly what happened. The power grid, the one thing that literally gave life to the digital age, became the very instrument of its destruction. The fatal flaw, it turns out, wasn't in any one computer, it was in the electrical current that they all shared.
The attack itself was, well, it was devastatingly simple. First, a computer worm got into the power grid. But here's the crazy part. It wasn't designed to cause a blackout. Its only job was to make the grid's frequency go completely haywire, totally chaotic. This hypervariable energy then surged through all the power lines, and it just fried every single delicate silicon chip that was built for that nice, stable hum. And the result? The lights actually stayed on, but the world's brain was wiped clean. You had power, but absolutely zero computation.
So how do you even begin to recover from something like that? The short answer is, you don't. You have to rebuild from scratch. And that brings us to the second act of our story, where humanity finds a totally new path forward, basically by looking to the past.
And this is the really crucial part. They didn't even try to recreate the fragile technology that failed them so spectacularly. Why would they? Instead, they went for a completely new philosophy. They started building hardware that wasn't just resistant to those frequency shifts, it was frequency agile. In other words, it just flat out didn't care how unstable the power got.
So what did they come up with? Something called relay cores. Okay, so I want you to just forget everything about transistors and silicon for a minute. Instead, think of these as like super complex, modernized versions of old-school telephone switches. We're talking about physical, mechanical clicks that are actually creating logic. And because they're mechanical, guess what? They are completely immune to the kind of frequency attack that wiped out the old world. This becomes the new digital backbone.
So there was a fundamental trade-off here. It was a massive exchange. Humanity basically traded the fragile, silent, invisible magic of the microchip for something very different. This new tech was incredibly robust, sure, but it was also noisy. It physically clicked and clacked. Its complexity wasn't hidden away, it was transparent. You could literally see and hear the logic happening right in front of you.
You know, the whole philosophy of this new age is it's captured perfectly in this one line. They traded the silent complexity of the microchip for the noisy, observable, and robust reality of the switch. It was a total paradigm shift. All of a sudden, information processing wasn't some invisible thing happening in a black box. It was something you could actually hear and even touch.
All right, that brings us to our final act, life on the slow internet. So what was it actually like to live in this world of clicks and a whole lot of patience?
This is where something called the Volta protocol comes in, and it's pretty brilliant. They literally turned the weapon, the power grid itself, into the solution. It became their new communication network. Here's how. By subtly changing how much power a relay core was drawing, it could send a tiny signal down the existing power lines to another core, maybe across the city or even across the country.
So if you wanted to, say, send a message, how would that even work? Well, your relay core would start modulating its power draw, creating this tiny little ripple on the grid. That signal would then travel down the power lines to the next core, which picks it up and passes it along. So a message isn't flying invisibly through fiber optic cables. No, it's propagating physically as this wave of audible clicks, literally a cascade of sound moving through a city's relays.
So what did that feel like to use? This really puts it into perspective. Our internet speed, we measure that in gigabits per second. Theirs, they were lucky to get bits per minute. We use light and radio waves. They use the raw, noisy power grid. What this all means is that our instant, real-time experience was completely replaced by a very patient, turn-based kind of communication. A single message could take several minutes to arrive, one audible click at a time.
And honestly, that is probably the most profound difference of all. In this world, computation is no longer a private, silent thing you do on your own device. It's a public utility. It's part of the city's soundscape, the actual work of the city, the flow of information. You can hear it as this constant rhythmic clicking all around you. It's almost like the city is thinking out loud.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. Our civilization, we chose speed. We built everything on the principle of going faster and faster. And it's incredibly powerful for sure. But as this story shows, it's also potentially incredibly fragile. They, on the other hand, were forced to choose resilience. Their world is slow, it's deliberate, but it's built to withstand the very thing that brought ours down. So it kind of leaves you with this big question, right? Which one of those, speed or resilience, is truly built to last?